The Gadabout. I do not know who I am. It doesn't matter now. It never has. If I ever had a name, I had forgotten it long ago. Now, I only use the name legends have given me. They call me the Gadabout. No one can see me. I have no physical form. No one can hear me. I have no voice. No one can feel me. I have no presence. I have no touch. I am only a thought, an unfamiliar voice who whispers words strange and serene, soon to be forgotten in the stream of conscious. I come and go as time and destiny take me, drifting like the wind, aimless and helpless. Most of my hosts never know the difference. Yes, hosts. The legends call me an energy vampire. To an extent it is true. I feed off the human essence from some safe place in the mind, but never enough to weaken or kill. I will not lie, there have been accidents, but they are thankfully rare. I am a parasite indeed, but not one without respect for life. I understand its value, how precious it really is. I understand that rebirth and growth are much more satisfying than a hearty fill. I see life, and I dare not disturb it. It is beautiful, but only without me. For centuries I have traveled, created a chain of souls throughout all time, linking humanity together, passing through the touch of fingertips. From every host before I leave, I take wisdom, strength, and a tiny fragment of the soul, a memento. These make up my entire being, and I have only become stronger. However, I never use my power for anything but ritual. I have grown quite comfortable being an observer. As I have said, I dare not disturb the beauty of life. In the past I had sometimes been tempted, and in my foolish age I had sometimes followed through. But in the end, I always saw that interference had grave consequences. I fear that you, who are listening to my tale, may suffer some of these consequences on my behalf. However, I know you are troubled, and I hope that you wouldn't mind a companion, if only for a brief time. I would parrot the wisdom of philosophers, scientists, writers, and artists, the wisest minds of all time, but I have gathered the courage to speak to you as myself. You have the time and a clear mind, so I will tell you a tale of self and sacrifice. It begins in a time not long before yours, late on a rainy night. A man with empty pockets, soaking wet and chilling cold, had finally made it home to his young wife. James, what the hell happened? You were supposed to be home 4 hours ago. I know. I'm sorry, Izumi. Sorry? What happened back there? You couldn't get a ride? Azumi was about to help James take off his damp coat, but he waved her away and took it off himself. He felt a little better once the weight was off his shoulders, but it didn't help with the guilt. I didn't have enough for a taxi, James replied, before realizing what he had said. So you did lose, Azumi sighed, crossing her arms. Could you make it any more obvious? God, James, you know you can't keep doing this. Eventually I won't be able to give you any more money, especially if you think I don't know that. You think I haven't been trying? Just give me one more chance. No, James. Not anymore. If you keep doing this, we're not going to have enough money for food. I know that. You know that, and yet you don't do anything about it. I can only be nice about this for so long before it's not worth it anymore. Before you're not worth it. With that, she turned around and headed toward the kitchen. Azumi! James kept close behind her. You can't mean that. I mean, you know I'm doing all this for you, right? Of course you are, she replied, looking over her shoulder. That's what you tell me. That's what you've always told me. But for some reason, I don't believe you. I'm sorry, but it's gotten out of hand. I don't know what else to tell you, except to get your damn money somewhere else. She stopped in front of the kitchen sink. I love you, but I don't love you enough to let you throw away my inheritance. It's not like that. Then enlighten me. What is it like? Azumi turned to face him. Because my way of getting money back is not losing it in the first place. Keeping it in the bank instead of giving it to bums like you. I've appeased you all these years, James. I've let you borrow money from me so you can go play cards, and you keep telling me you'll pay me back. You'll pay me back, you'll pay me back, you'll pay me back, and yet every night you show up without so much as lint in your pocket. I'm sorry, James, but I can't do this anymore. Either get a job, or have a garage sale, just find some way to pay me back so we don't go broke. Now I'm going to make dinner, she added mechanically, turning her back to him once again. I'll call you when it's done. James was about to respond, but he thought better of it. She had always told him to go get a real job instead of spending his time gambling, but she couldn't understand the fact that there was nothing, absolutely nothing useful he could do. He had never been able to get through college, and it was impossible for him to get a job no matter how much he prepared for his interviews, almost as if fate wanted to keep him rooted to the spot. The only thing he had going for him was his luck, or so he thought. James tried to shake the thought out of his head. Maybe it was all rigged, like a cheap carnival game that seemed so simple, but the bottles normally nailed to the pedestal were now made out of steel. And on the other side of that impossible task, Azumi's love. At this point, James had spent so much time on that one game, it would have been more worthwhile just to buy out the whole damn carnival. But he was going to keep playing, even though he knew it wasn't fair. He would win, and he would make those cheating bastards pay, even if he had to take the money off their dead bodies. James made his way to the living room, and threw himself onto the couch, shivering a little. The tension melted away, and he became limp the moment his body hit the cushions. Suddenly, his mind told him to relax. It sounded like a voice in his head, but maybe that was just his imagination. Just his body telling him to skip everything else and go to bed because this night needed to be over as soon as possible. James wasn't about to argue with that logic. He closed his eyes and, within moments, he dozed off. Fascinating. As I had my fill, I searched through James's mind. As it turned out, his luck was irreparably terrible. There was nothing he could do, nothing that could happen, no possible way he could win back the money his wife had loaned him. People like him, though they made ideal hosts, made horrible gamblers, as I have discovered many times throughout the course of history. People like him, they projected their emotions. Anger, anxiety, depression, fear, they could all be sensed from a world away. James wouldn't be able to contain himself long enough to avenge his losses. This was a battle he couldn't win. And yet, his love, his concern for his wife was genuine, or at least that's what he believed. Even when she no longer believed in him, he believed in himself for her sake. He was still going to try, even though it would inevitably do more harm than good. Poor man. He earned his sleep for the night. But there was something else about this encounter, too. Something I couldn't shake. From the moment James had grabbed his companion's wrist out of frustration during his poker game to when he had gone to sleep just a few moments ago, I was seeing through his eyes and letting his mental processes course through my being as if he and I were one. For that time I had lost myself within him, but something seemed to have pulled me from my trance prematurely. It was a feeling of some kind. Nothing from James's mind, I was sure of that. At that point, I knew him well enough to judge that the feeling was out of character. It was unusual, even for me. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before, not once throughout all time. Had it been from within myself? Impossible. Very rarely did I have thoughts of my own, only recollections of past experiences and echoes of words from other souls. Perhaps there is a Gadabout within myself, one I am unaware of as my hosts are unaware of me, and one who had chosen only now to speak and only had one word to say. Azumi. Looking at her, listening to her speak, feeling James's raging emotions coursing through him and through me like nipping sparks, it gave me a feeling within myself, one so powerful it broke my trance for a time, and I remembered that we were two beings in one mind. This was nothing like what James felt for her. This was... Many of my wiser hosts have found definitions for love. According to them, there were several different kinds. Love that has stayed strong over time, flickered like a flame stroked by wind, gone out, succumbed to the storm. But then there was new love. The kind of love I've heard that sets the soul aflame, gives new and sudden meaning to life, that keeps a man awake for many nights, be it from ecstasy or crippling depression. Was this what was happening to me? For once, I didn't have an answer. In the past, I always had something to offer, an adage from a soul long gone to share with my troubled host, but not once had I ever had to console myself. How would I? Giving myself wisdom was useless. There was nothing within my being I didn't already know. I searched through my knowledge, I searched within myself, but it was all words. Concatenations of phonetic sounds, coordinated lines and curves. None of it could help me now. I never liked to think about the fact that I had the power to fully possess a human body. I could never bring myself to use it. It would mean that I would fully consume the soul and its energy, giving it a fate that to me was far worse than the death of its shell. But as I was now, I was dependent on James's whims. If he continued to make Azumi suffer, albeit unintentionally, I would be helpless. At the very idea, I found myself engulfed in sadness. Me, completely independent of my host, who at the time was sleeping peacefully. I found myself wanting, desperately wanting a way to comfort her, if and when James would try his luck again. I found myself wanting to be with her, not only as a temporary companion, not only as a guest in her mind, but, in theory, I could stay with James and be able to see Azumi for a little while longer. However, I couldn't turn a blind eye to the inevitable. It had happened too many times before, and for lesser reasons than this. I had lost track of time, or I couldn't find another host. Something along those lines, but never this. Never anything like this. And why? Why Azumi, and why now? What was it about her presence that drew me to her, that made me think about her more than a thought should? The combination of physical elements that gave her beauty, her porcelain face, her almond eyes, her raven hair, her musical voice, was that what drew me? Did the stars or planets align in my favor? Or was it my power? Was I finally strong enough to become something more? Did I have enough fragments to become a whole? I didn't want to think about that. I didn't want to think about having that kind of power. I wouldn't be able to trust myself. I would be like James, thinking I could do more than I could, doing more damage than... I couldn't use my power. But what about Azumi? I couldn't communicate with her. Even if we did share a mind, I wouldn't know what to say. My thoughts and opinions were from the chain of humanity I had left behind. Not once had I ever said anything. It had always been from this person or that whom I'd known before. I had never had a true conversation, one between the host and myself, and even if I had tried, no one would think to respond. But could I try now? If I managed to speak to Azumi in some way, would she accept me? Or would she be afraid of me? Probably. Why did it even occur to me, if I knew it wasn't going to work? All these worries were new to me. It made me nervous. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to say, if I should say anything at all, or even if I could. I didn't know what to do. I tried to call upon my wisdom again, but still, no words could help me. For the first time, I found myself struggling to make a decision. No. For the first time, I found myself having to make a decision. I had decided to stay with James for the time being. I did it to give myself more time to think, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. But I was driven by wants. I wanted to see Azumi. I wanted to hear her voice from within someone she loved, if only to pretend it was me, myself, and not my host. The sensation of pretending, it was also something I had never felt before. The act of deceiving myself of reality as I had deceived others in the past was strange and yet satisfying at the same time. Was this the appeal of plays and literature, of fiction, to escape from reality itself and yet never move? As I absorbed myself in the facade, as James woke up in the morning and went about his day, I had plenty of opportunities to move on to my next host and leave James and Azumi behind, to let them become only another way station on my travels across eternity. But I refused. I stayed, and I unintentionally began to draw more energy from him, even after I'd already had my fill. I couldn't help it. I hadn't realized how much damage I'd done until 2 days later when James woke up. Or, at least, when he tried. His pulse was slower, his thoughts were less rapid, his energy flow was less a raging river and more an ambling creek. He could barely speak. He could barely move. He only drifted in and out of sleep, numb to the world around him. And yet, I was the strongest I had been in ages. When had I ever felt like this? The power I had combined with what I was afraid I was capable of. I had a chance. I knew that if I took enough of his energy, enough to kill him, then I would be powerful enough to take his body for myself. Would she know the difference? Azumi would look at me the same way, and I would love her more than James ever... No, I couldn't say that. I knew perfectly well how much he loved her. He had loved her enough to keep beating his head into a brick wall for a feeble chance of forgiveness. And me? I could never match that. But wouldn't it be better if James died? She'd been so close to leaving him anyway. If he suddenly began treating her better and straightening his life, it didn't matter what kind of person he was or what he did with his life. He was always significant to someone, and that someone was Azumi. Azumi, who found him in his bedroom after he'd slept in later than usual. Azumi, who called doctors and paid them with the money that James would have gambled away. Azumi, who urged them to keep looking for a physical cause, even when they said James's coma was inexplicable. Azumi, who sat at his bedside whenever she could and talked to him, hoping there was a slight chance that he would respond to her. Azumi, who stayed with him. I felt terrible, even though I knew this was my chance. He only had a little bit of life left, and if I took that, then I could have his body. I could end my travels here, once and for all. Just a few more hours, And then, for the first time, I could open my eyes. But I heard her crying. I heard her say his name. I felt her grab his hand. She held it tight, a new contender in the tug-of-war for his life. I knew how much he loved her, how much she loved him. Despite everything he had done in the past, she had still forgiven him. I knew from looking through James's memories that she had encouraged him to better himself, but it never worked out. He had never let it work out. Should he have another chance? I was running out of time to say yes, but it was the only answer I could give. He was the one Izumi loved, not me. She would have been able to tell the difference immediately. She would have most likely resented me. She would have known that I was the one who had killed him in the end. She would never forgive me. It would have been all for nothing. All life is beautiful, but only without me. She was still holding his hand. I knew what I had to do. I knew what I was giving up. I didn't care. I let go. Azumi had only looked away for a second, but when she focused on James again, she saw that the color was returning to his skin and his breathing became more pronounced. She didn't know why or how it had happened. Hell, no one knew what put him in this coma to begin with. But whatever it was, it'd been a miracle. The anxiety and fear melted away, and joyful tears streamed down her cheeks as she embraced him, talked to him, tried to coax him back into the land of the living. Eventually, he came back, only to find a message left for him deep in his subconscious. Listen to her. You are lucky to have her. I have given you another chance. Do not waste it. Hello, Izumi. What? Where am I? Who are you? Please, don't be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you. Who are you? I am a visitor. A visitor inside your mind. Your dreams are the only way I can communicate with you. What are you talking about? Who are you? What are you? I know it's strange. It's strange to me too. I would explain everything, believe me, I would. But we don't have much time. You haven't even told me who you are. I don't know if... Show yourself! I can't do that. Why? It's hard to explain. Really, Never mind. I shouldn't have even... What? No. I'm here now. I should just say it. Say what? What are you talking about? Azumi, I need to apologize. For what? What did you do? I need to apologize about your husband. James? What do you know about him? What did you do to him? Who are you? Azumi, I am a parasite. A parasite of the mind. Parasite? What are you? That was you? You tried to kill him. Why? What did he do? What did I do? It's difficult. I don't really... There was no reason, not that you could comprehend, but please, please don't be afraid. Please don't think of me like that. How else can I? You tried to kill him. You almost killed him. And for no reason. Why? Tell me. Yes, I won't deny that, but I didn't mean it. You didn't mean it. Yes. How exactly does that work? I don't know. You don't know? Yes. I can't believe this. Well, what do you know? I know that... Never mind. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have said anything. I shouldn't have. Attempted murder? If you have the balls, whatever you are, to apologize, then maybe you could have had a little more common sense. I shouldn't have spoken to you. This was a bad idea. It won't make much of a difference. Why? Are you going to kill me too? Is that why you're here? No, it's not. Azumi, I don't want to do that. I wouldn't dream of doing it. And why's that? Because I don't know how to say this. Never mind. Just get it over with. Azumi, I love you. What? There. I said it. I'm sorry. That's why I didn't leave, even though... I'm sorry. I don't understand. I knew you wouldn't. Nothing like this has ever happened to you before. And nothing like this has ever happened to me before either. But please, let me explain. I'm listening. I was only planning to stay inside your husband's mind for a short time. I go, I feed a little, and then I move on. That's the way I've always done it. But when I saw you through his eyes, when I saw you, I can't explain what happened. Not with 1,000 years of wisdom. I wanted to see you all the time, not just for a few days. I wanted you to know me, talk to me, look at me. That was the only time I wanted a body of my own. So you were able to suck his soul out? Or no, it doesn't work like that. It would take all night to explain, but I guess part of it does work that way. I mean, I could have had a physical body, and then I could have... No, I mean, you could have used his... Well, no, I mean, yes, I could have taken it, and you wouldn't have known the difference. You were going to steal it? In a sense, after I killed him. So you think that almost killing him is better? Is that what you're saying? Yes. Because you still have him. He'll live. He'll recover in a few weeks, and it'll be like this never happened. He'll be just as healthy, if not healthier than before. You care about him. You've shown that, and that's why I let him live. Because I couldn't kill him. It wouldn't have been right. So what now? I know that after tonight, you'll never hear from me again. You have earned that leisure. You will move on, as I will, and hopefully your relationship will grow stronger because of this. Before I left him, I encouraged him to find his talents. I searched through his mind. He has some even he doesn't know. As far as what will happen to you, your sadness and fear will all be gone by the morning. It is part of my talent. You will have pleasant dreams for the rest of the night, and more than likely, you will forget you ever met me. Perhaps it is better this way. Until we meet again, if ever, goodbye. And know that you are loved here on this earth and beyond.